Roll call.
Yep, Don Cooney,
Present.
Ben Damaro,
Here.
Patrice Griffin, Kim Hollers,
Present.
Bobby Hopewell, Brenda Hughes, Sakia Lee.
Present. Kevin, are we still supposed to be saying what location we're in, or we don't have to do that anymore? I'm
I don't
in
know.
the city of Kalamazoo. I just want to make sure I'm following all the protocols.
Okay, yeah, I forgot. We can't keep doing that. Just to keep with the cadence. Carol McGlynn.
Here, and so where I am at this moment or where I live?
Now, where you at?
Okay, well, I am in Bel Air, Michigan.
All right, John Oliver,
Present. Kalamazoo.
Jonathan Pulley,
Present, Calhoun County.
Alyssa Stewart.
Present, Kalamazoo County.
All right, thanks everybody.
Okay, can we have a motion to accept the people that are, excuse the people that are absent today?
So moved.
Support.
Second. So
Sakaya did it. Sakaya.
All right.
we're
there you
racing.
go. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, they're excused. And next we'll move on to the approval of the regular meeting minutes. Are there any comments on those or changes? Need a motion to approve?
So motioned.
Motion by Alyssa, second.
John second.
John second.
John, second. Okay, all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, those pass. And I'm sorry, I should have started at the beginning to welcome our newest member, John. John, this is your first meeting, correct?
It's my first meeting.
Yes, so welcome. Thank you for taking time out of your schedule to be part of SBK, and we're really excited to have you on board.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me. Look forward to
Great.
the work.
Great. Next, we need to approve the agenda. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So move.
Moved by Don, second. Supported by Ben. Are there any changes to the agenda? All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the agenda passes. Kevin, I don't think there's any reports from officers, boards, or committees. Is that correct?
That's
Or
correct.
okay, then we will move on to new business, and we'll start with Alice. Kevin.
All right. So yeah, this should be a quick meeting. Let you all get back to your day. It's a beautiful day out as well, so you can enjoy it. But we've had more than several relevant presentations earlier in the year connected to work. Now it's time to kind of digest some of that information and begin thinking about the upcoming year and beyond. 2022 will be upon us before we know it. And so with that, starting with Alice in particular, I'm discussing a partnership with the Promise, Kalamazoo Promise. Ben is in that discussion as well, in addition to Sakia, around a potential citywide workforce development strategy to achieve our goal of a strong and economically secure families. This includes Alice households, which would mean families, which makes it a 2-gen type component. And so it's in alignment with what we've been discussing and talking about. We've also, from our 2018 plan, had Alice as a priority population. I don't think we've really kind of honed in on that as much as we should have. But with the report that came out this year, the meeting we had, presentation we had, and again, everything that's been happening, I think it's time to revisit that, reassess, especially through a 2-gen lens. And so just want to put that out there for consideration, discussion. I know Alyssa from United Way is mostly connected with that, being that this is a big part of their work. But want to just put that out there and get you all to thinking about that as we move towards 2022.
Point of clarity.
Yes.
Could you share a little of the Alice? It's a point of clarity for me.
Oh, in terms of, it's an acronym. Thanks, John.
Yeah.
You channeling Bobby now. I just assumed everybody knew Alice is an acronym for asset limited, income constrained, employed. And so it includes people who are within the federal poverty level guidelines, but is also folks that they earn, and Alyssa can correct me if I'm wrong, but they earn income that places them out of public supports, but not enough to really cover a lot of the basic needs and cost of living elements.
Thank you.
And John, I'd be happy to send you the PowerPoint that I presented to this committee previously, just so you have that same information.
Well, and when we were bringing this up and discussing this, we were just talking about, we have focus areas. We've talked about 2-gen approach, and we were thinking that the Alice piece could help us with a little bit more of like a focus, data-driven kind of way of impact. So, being able to say, we affect so many Alice households in the work, in the work we're doing, or we're improving the lives that way. So the conversation was along that lines of kind of tying everything together for the work coming ahead. And Kevin, is that where, kind of that sums up that conversation a little bit?
Yeah, Carol was referring to the executive committee meeting where we set the agenda for regular meetings. And yeah, we had discussed around that. So the Alice website, it's an interactive website. And from that website, we can, there are concrete numbers in terms of Alice households in our core neighborhoods, East Side, Edison, and North Side. And so that's what Carol was referring to. It's, I can't recall the number offhand, but it's a specific number in terms of Alice households that are in our core neighborhoods. And with that, like Carol was saying, we can isolate and do some real data-driven work around that.
So I wonder, did you say, Kevin, that Ben and Sakaya were planning something around that? Did you say that, or did I?
No, I didn't say. I said it's discussions right now with the Kalamazoo Promise.
Yeah.
In terms of citywide workforce development strategy around that goal, and of course, being anything connected to jobs, being is going to be in that conversation.
So,
oh,
go ahead. That's I want to hear what you guys got to say.
So this is work that we had started pre-pandemic, and it's very similar to what was going on in Austin when we did that site visit. So they had a full community workforce development plan, which included obviously the workforce board, community college, employers, other nonprofits, and really just got everyone on the same page in terms of where they're at as a community and where they want to be, and then set quantifiable goals in terms of how they needed to get there over the next, I think it was a 5-year plan. So developing something similar to that for the city of Kalamazoo.
Yeah, and Don, I'll just say, in terms of our connection, and we you know, we know what the promise was designed to do in terms of reaching post-secondary credentials, right? But we want to be thinking beyond that. And so that's why we brought somebody on for a workforce strategy. The thing is, we want Promise students to have good jobs. The Promise students are in our concentrated areas, North Side, East Side, Edison. And so the last thing we want to do is have somebody get a degree. And then often we go into our local restaurants and establishments, and nothing wrong with that, but that's where they're working.
Yeah.
So the more that
Yeah.
we can work with Ben and be connected to the city to make sure students are getting good jobs and staying in Kalamazoo, so they don't feel like they have to go to other places and spaces, but to remain in the heart of the city. So
Oh,
that's
that's
always
great.
right.
That's great.
And, the idea was to, be able to actually tie some numbers to, can we move this needle? Can we improve the lives of, of Alice and people that fall in Alice and below? And so be able to actually benchmark some of those improvements. That was the idea behind using Alice. And I think it just kind of makes a real clear guideline of, where we're trying to, what we're trying to affect, who we're trying to affect, how we're going to do that. So, kind of wrapping this up so that, as Kevin says, we all want to be able to talk about our work out in the community, and we can be very specific about what that work is, and and measurable goals towards that end.
So what's the status of that now? That sounds wonderful. That's great.
No, it's we talking and trying to work out some details. It's not even anything on paper yet, Mr.
Okay.
Cooney. So
Okay.
it's still very nascent. Right now, just being strategic about possible stakeholders and getting early adopters like Ben, and Sakia and champions. And so it's not anything even on paper yet,
Okay.
but
Right.
I'm gonna keep everybody up to date on that.
And,
Go ahead.
we're bringing this to the attention of the committee to make sure that
Right.
that makes sense, that that's a course of action that makes sense to move forward with.
Yeah, I think it's great. And I was just going to ask Alyssa if you guys have any recommendations about what to do about Alice families. Does the United Way, who's done that study, make any recommendations on it?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think a couple things. One, it makes sense in some ways to really be thoughtful about the practical side of Alice, what it means to be Alice in a household, which is there are real budget implications. So there's obviously the revenue side of a budget. So wages and ensuring that there are strong wages is obviously like a key factor. So employment, job readiness, job training, upskilling, those are all super critical strategies. We are also right now working at United Way in partnership actually with the Uptown Institute and some partners out in northern New Jersey, which is actually where the Alice Report was born, if you will, at Rutgers University, on a concept called an Alice-friendly workplace, where we're actually working with employers, so the employer side of this, of how to employers think about the strategies that they use to be a better workplace, and hopefully reducing the number of Alice workers they have over time, but being more supportive of those workers and more aware of the situations those workers are in, and structuring policy and procedure and practice to be more supportive of those folks. So that's another strategy I would just lift up, is the employer side of it. And then really, like, all of the budget line items, like, there are supports that can be done via nonprofits and or public policy, things like transportation, housing, all of those pieces. So I would just say, there are really, I would say, existing strategies and probably new strategies needed in most of those sort of line item categories, if you think about it that way. So lots to be done, but I would say, sort of in my mind, I hate to say silver bullet, because like there is no silver bullet. This is obviously a very complex issue, but wages are key. At the end of the day, like, that is the most sustainable way for these issues to be resolved for households, is for them to be able to earn a wage that allows them to exceed that ALICE survival budget threshold and to even get closer to the stability budget that the ALICE report establishes, which is even significantly higher. So really to get into significant salaried positions that can create long-term stability for their families.
Great.
And I guess the thing that I will add to that, and definitely from my background, is, the education piece to me is just so critical to all of this. So, not losing sight of, being able to have a long-term vision of, educating our kids, our adults who need, extra help and things like that too. So, I don't want it to get so focused on, I'm all about jobs and that and housing, but I also don't want to lose that education piece.
Yeah.
In my mind, Carol, this is Alyssa, sorry. In my mind, that two generational piece is where I think we'll be able to marry those two. And I also would just lift up that childcare, throughout the ages where childcare is needed, which very much overlaps with K through 12, is also that is one of the top expenses in the ALICE budget. So families having access to childcare, which has educational outcomes, but also employment outcomes. We know how, especially right now, how critical childcare is. So I agree that there's a huge intersection there, and that a two-generational approach in supporting ALICE will hopefully have that double impact of supporting education and employment for working age adults.
And just to add on to that, because Carol, the education piece is so important, and not just for, young kiddos, but across the spectrum. But we often see, high school students that are also trying to work to bring in money in the ALICE household because the income is short. And so, yeah, I think that two-generation piece will be so beneficial for, all members in the household, obviously beyond the dollars, but then so maybe kids can just focus on being kids and not having to work, and they can focus more on education, all of those.
Yeah.
This is Jonathan Pulley speaking. One quick question. So I'm loving the dialogue and definitely got more sort of diving into ALICE to kind of give myself a broader spectrum. But one question that comes into mind is thinking about the communities we serve. Is the community associations or community stakeholders not only aware of this, but also do they have input on what could work for some of their communities? And for me, a lot of the lenses I think about is evaluation first, community input and voice, and then being able to build up the capacity for these communities, Northside, Edison, in these areas to be able to advocate for themselves. And I wonder, is that a part of that, those conversations, so they can talk amongst their community to see what makes sense, along with, all of the stuff that we're bringing into the picture.
When you say awareness, you mean awareness of ALICE issues, or?
Yeah, that's probably a loaded statement, but yes, ALICE in connection to sort of some of these larger issues that we're trying to resolve around housing, and in this particular case, wages, workforce, and things like that. I think we all can agree that these are pretty complex issues that all in many ways have interconnection. And when I say awareness, I'm asking more, is it a part of the conversation? And what recommendations would community stakeholders have about these issues also?
Right. So I would say and offer folks to chime in, but I would say to your question, yeah, folks are acutely aware because, our neighborhood plans, the 2018 SBK plan, a lot of, even in Magic Kalamazoo, like the shared prosperity goal map we have in the city organization, like that came from community input, right? So the demand for filling these gaps and some of these systemic things that comes from community, right? A lot of the things that we've learned, not just through our work, we've learned through being in connection with community. So folks are aware, right? And definitely don't have any qualms about, telling you like we got gaps in housing, we got gaps in transportation. So they are aware. And then in terms of input, like I said, the various plans that we have all have community fingerprints on them. And so, but there to that end, it's always opportunity for us and folks in our position to refine like how we go about, getting those voices. And I think that's the opportunity and part of our focus should be, how to really close some of those gaps.
And I think that last piece that you mentioned, it's sort of I think about like the feedback loop, and that closing the loop is more what I was thinking about. So yeah, thank you.
Yeah, and I'll just echo when you first asked the question, Jonathan, I immediately thought back to the neighborhood plans, because I think every last one of them spoke to something about job access and childcare, to be quite honest, from what I can remember. And I see Kim nodding her head. I think the other thing, because it's still very preliminary, that's when the key partners and key voices come in, because Kevin knows the way I operate, nothing about us without us. I'm not trying to, the premise is not even trying to go into Edison and say, these are the jobs that you should be having, when we don't know if that's what people want. But yeah, I think most certainly when we get, when we drill down to stakeholders, because it's place-based, we have to be able to close that loop. And that's also why we have some representation from the neighborhoods on this committee. And so people that are entrenched in the neighborhoods every day, that can also add voice to say, this is what I'm seeing in my neighborhood.
Right. And, we're not going to lose sight of the core neighborhoods and, getting that input because that is critical in all of this.
Is there a tiered approach to which populations or demographics will be addressed or identified first? So I'm just thinking of the core neighborhoods, 25 under 25, maybe a certain percentage or number, 25 to 44, and then all the
Right.
seniors.
Yeah, we
And then
do
break down
have,
again with households and families with children, or that whole comparison.
there is within the report some data that I think could be helpful to that question, John, and that'll be in that PowerPoint I share with you, where we do know that certain demographic groups are disproportionately living below the ALICE threshold, so are in that ALICE space. And you touched on a few. Households headed by people under 25 is one category. Black households are disproportionately in that category. Hispanic and Latin households are in that category. So I'll share that data because I think that could help us. And also based on statewide trends, single female-headed households are actually the most disproportionately, if you look at the statewide data. So I do think it gives us some cues of how prioritization could be.
Right. And we have not done that yet. This is really kind of the beginning of, putting some thought behind what that looks like. But I think it's it's a really good point that those are all things that we should be looking at when if the committee chooses to go down this road, that's all the work that would need to be done.
Thank you.
Well, I think this is, go ahead, John, you gotta say something. Well, I
was just saying thank you.
Yeah, I just think it's a great initiative. And I think you've got people on this committee who are experts in the area. And I think I would hope that the next time we meet, we could come up with some preliminary proposals, because you got the people here that know how to do this stuff.
Okay. All right. Any other questions on ALICE? then we're gonna move on to the next topic, which is the SPK retreat. Kevin, do you want to talk a minute on that?
Yeah, so Jonathan Pulley and John Oliver are new members. They weren't here last year. Everybody else was. We had a retreat last year, organizing committee retreat in March of 2020. And some strange things happened after our retreat in March of 2020, if you recall. So at the exec committee, we floated this idea again of having a retreat. So last time it was heavy focus on like team development and overall SPK updates within the city organization. In light of the recent FFE announcement, COVID-19 and all the challenges that has brought, and just a time to reassess the position of SPK and the work of this body. Again, the idea was floated that maybe we should have a organize a committee retreat and hone in on some of those things and reassess where we're at. And so I spoke with the city attorney, and it will fall under the Open Meetings Act. I think for the remainder of this year, we'll have to meet virtually. So if this was to happen, it wouldn't happen until next year, which allows us some time to discuss it more. And if there's appetite for that, to plan it out. But just wanted to put that on everybody's radar for consideration.
Mhm.
I think we were really hoping to have that retreat, right away. But obviously that's not where we're going right now. So, but really, and I guess Kevin, so I guess the big thing for me is just getting prepared for the next round of grants, which what's our timeline with that?
Well, right now we'd have to wait and see in terms of the FFE ask. So I think, and Laura's on. That's part of city commission budget decision, if I'm correct. So that'll be next year, right?
Sure, the Deputy City Manager, Laura Lamb, happy to just weigh in. As Kevin was saying, this is part of our budget process. So we've got requests that are coming in and being evaluated. The draft budget is usually out by December 1st. That indicates what the administration is recommending to City Commission for consideration. And then the first of the month, usually, in January, you'll have the commission consider the full budget and approve it. So we can certainly make sure that as we go through the budget process, that this group is kind of kept apprised of where things are at relative to the shared prosperity request.
I think that would be very helpful. And, that would make it too that, if we were planning a retreat, hopefully we could do that early January.
I'm curious, sorry, Alyssa Stewart here. I'm curious of whether us starting to articulate some changes to our approach, if we do go the direction of sort of centering Alice, I'm curious if that would be helpful to the deliberation process, or whether that would be, I'm just curious of sort of if it's expected that the resources to SBK for grant making will likely stay flat, and whether that's just sort of to be expected, or whether there could be advocacy potentially for more or different resources based on the approach we might take. So I'm just wondering if there could be benefit to formulating our approach and then communicating that prior to the budget process, if we think it might result in us advocating for more resources.
Yeah. Good idea.
I think that's great to engage just overall, as part of, branding and marketing and telling the story. I just think that would be a good practice. So, I'll be more than willing to follow up with you offline to get some more idea on what you're thinking about specifically. But that's something that we could engage in. I'm interested to know what others are thinking about around that.
I think it's wonderful. I think if we could come up with a plan and put that on the table, that would be a great service to the city. I mean, this is a really good initiative that you're laying out. And I think it would make a real difference, and it would be terrific to put that in front of the commission as they do their budget deliberations.
And I do think much of the work that we've done in the past, this is following what we've done in the past, but just honing in a little bit more, I think. I mean, I think that's the point of this, is to kind of hone in a little bit, because we've been so broad in our process so far. So I think that work can continue on, Kevin, in the next, to me, that's what we will be doing then in the next couple of months, is working a little bit more towards that. Was that your thought, Kevin?
Yeah, certainly. And in addition, coming up with some physical document, maybe a bridging document to explain like where we're at, some highlights, milestones for the year, and where we're going in 2022 and why. I think that would be beneficial, not just for city commission, but public in general. And so I could start drafting something and work with some members of the OC to kind of finalize that.
Yeah, I love the idea of, to Carol's point, like the evolution. So talking about like our initial rounds of grant making, then our most recent, and then like where the direction we're going, and like why and what we've learned in each process. Just in a high level way, I agree, would be super helpful. Almost like a historical document for all of us, and for the community, and then also for city commission to sort of memorialize what we've been learning.
Any other comments?
I think it is Brenda has her hand up.
Oh, Brenda,
Literally and physically.
you were on mute. Oh, there you go, Brenda.
Hi. Hi, yes. At first, I tried to phone in and it said I'd be muted the whole time. And now I'm kind of half working off my iPhone Wi-Fi. I'm in the parking lot at the dentist. But my thoughts on the, to back up what Alyssa just said, I was thinking about, did we wrap up, get a final report, and look at the results of the first round? And then we're in the second round. If we could do that, that would give us a history and comparison, and maybe clear path.
Right. Brenda, we're getting lots of backup or feedback. I think we got the gist of what you said, so that's a good thing. But there's lots of noise in the background. But
that's probably because my iPhone is feeding this and I'm outside. But I'm sorry. But
No.
I wanted to let you know I'm here too.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. And we did hear it. So we got the message that you were putting forward. So thank you. Any other comments? Okay. Then the next part is unfinished business, which I don't think there is any. Is there
No.
any miscellaneous comments from members?
Well, I would just add that a lot of the things that we've been talking about today, especially the childcare thing, are on the table in Congress right now. And one of the things we should be doing is advocating for the passage of that Family Act, because that would give us the resources that we need so bad. So anything we can do to encourage the passage of that act, I think it would be right down what we should be doing as a committee.
Thank you, Don. And anything else?
For clarity, I know last time we met in July, in-person meetings. I know, Kevin, you mentioned a little bit is when you talked to the city attorney that you would think it's the beginning of the calendar year. Is that what it's looking like for return of in-person meetings at this particular moment?
It's nothing specific. I just know for the remainder of this year, meetings will be virtual. And then we'll probably get some more clarity beginning of next year.
Thank you. Yeah. Thanks for clarifying that. Anything else? Okay, then the next is public comment. Do we have any public comment?
There are no public comments at this time.
Okay, thank you. All right, well, seeing nothing else, then we can adjourn the meeting. Thanks, everybody, for participating, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Take
Take
care,
care.
everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a
Take
good one.
Thanks,
care.
everyone.